Welcome guys to the channel. Today we're going to look at what distributed version control system is and what centralized version control system is. So what basically is Git, what is GitHub, all of that. Okay, we are going to look at the theoretical part of things before we enter the coding side, the commands and how actually it works in a practical scenario. This playlist is dedicated for Git, GitHub, and this is something that's very important. So I hope that all of you understand everything that's being taught here. Okay, so let's get started. So what is version controlling system, right? What is version control system? What do you mean by version control? Right, so that's the first question that should come in mind. If all of you guys would have heard about version controlling, some sort of version controlling, correct? Why do we need that? Right, now let's assume that we have an application. Okay, so this application is a front-end application. So let's assume it's got an index.html, let's say style.css file and an index.js file. Okay, so these three files are present in this application. Let's assume there's no version controls, there's no concept. Okay, let's assume that we are storing it. Okay, now we have one developer, dev1. Okay, so he is storing this entire folder or entire application in a folder, and let's name it app1. Okay, so in this directory he is going and storing this bunch of three files, right? The HTML, CSS and the JS file. Now this developer one goes and makes changes in the HTML file. He makes a lot of changes in the JS file and probably a bit of changes in the CSS file. Okay, and he runs the code and he goes back home. He's like he finished working for today and he comes back tomorrow. He logs in. Now whatever changes he has made, he gets to know that it's wrong. Okay, let's say the changes he made in the JavaScript file is wrong and he wanted to get the initial version, right? Whatever changes were there before he made these wrong changes, how the file was, he wanted that detail. But since we have just saved this file directly onto the folder, we do not have that information. That is gone. The previous version of this JavaScript file is completely wiped out. Right, we do not have that information at all because he has made changes and there is no version controlling here. So we do not have the history maintained here, correct? There is no history of the file JS, none of the file, the history is not at all maintained. This is a problem if we save the file directly in a folder, even if it is a shared folder worked by multiple developers. This issue is there, correct? So there is no version controlling if you just go ahead and save the file in the file system directly, correct? So this is a failure when it comes to storage, right? So we cannot maintain version controlling. So this history cannot be maintained. That is the reason why file system is a bad approach. That's the first thing. Okay. Now, how can we solve this problem? Right. So that's where we come into something known as the version control. Right. So what does version controlling do? Right. Let's take a look at that. So let's say we have something called the version controlling. So let me get that black. Yeah. So version controlling or VC. Okay. So here what happens is, let's say we have the application initially with three files: index.html, index.js and style.css. Now when we have these three files, right, let's assume this is the initial draft version. So let's assume the version to be 1.0.0. okay. Now developer 1 or developer A make some changes to the JS file. Okay. Now the new bunch that we have is going to be 1.0.1. okay. What is the advantage here is when we have index.html, .js and .css index dot, right, and this is style.css, right. So when he makes a change in the JavaScript file, the version is going to, let's assume it changes to 1.0.1, right. So now there's another developer, developer B, he comes and reviews his code, right. He's reviewing his code, right. So when he reviews the code, he gets to know that whatever developer A has done is wrong. Okay. So he tells developer A, go ahead and see what was there in the history, how the file was created, what all changes were there earlier, and based on that make amends, right. So now since we have the version control, that means we know that this system, since we have the version controlling system in place, we will have the track of the entire history. So right now the current code base, the head is at 1.0.1. all he has to do is point or check out 1.0.0 version, and that way he will get the history and he can actually compare both these versions and see what changes he has done and what has gone wrong, right. Based on that he can make changes. So this is a concept, very generic concept of version controlling, correct. So I hope that you guys understood what version controlling is. In the next session we will be looking in detail about the different types of version control, right, different types of VCs. To give you a brief idea, the first one is known as the centralized version control and the second one is known as the distributed version control. Okay, so we will look at these two things in detail in the next video. So thanks a lot guys. To see more of these content, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Until next time.